You have curly hair in any form, one of the things that you worry about the most is heat damage. And even if you don't have naturally curly hair, or even if you have relaxed hair, you can have heat damage too. But two other forms of damage that nobody talks about, so today we are going to talk about them: mechanical damage, environmental damage, and chemical damage. And by the end of this video, you are going to know what these three are and how to prevent and fix them. So if you want to know, make sure you stick around to the end of this video so I can answer all of your questions. Before we get started, make sure you go ahead and subscribe here to my channel and then click on that bell notification so you're notified every single time I post a new video. If you are new to my channel, hey, how are you? My name is Cyn Doll. I am a herbalist, cosmetologist, scientist, and a couple of other things. And here on my channel, I love to talk about the wonders of nature and its benefits for healthy hair, skin, nails, gut health, and so many other things. But the overall subject of this channel is God's creation. Let's hop right into it. Number one is going to be mechanical damage. Now, mechanical damage is classified as anything that you can do tangibly to the hair shaft that causes breakage, damage, split ends, different holes and rips, or anything like that in the hair shaft. And the forms of mechanical damage, in other videos that you'll see, even one of mine included, when I put it in layman's terms, heat damage was one of the three categories. But heat damage is really a part of mechanical damage, because mechanical damage is something classified as something that you, the user, you, the person that has the hair, is either allowing somebody to do to your hair, or something that you are doing yourself manually to your hair that causes damage. And those things are classified as devaluing. Most times we're blaming things like combs and brushes and blow dryers for our mechanical damage, but it's not the tool's actual fault. The fault is user error. If you are not properly educated on how to use certain tools and utensils, it will cause excessive mechanical damage. So let's talk about some of these tools, how they're used wrong, and how you're supposed to actually use them. Number one is going to be combs and brushes. It's before we're even talking about the texture and what brushes and combs are made for, we need to first learn combs and brushes. Even though most people will just look at a comb like this one, right, and just say, oh, that is just a rat tooth comb, but you don't know why one is used. This comb is one by from the Master Stylist. It's a really good wide tooth comb. The teeth are really close together, and this makes it so I can blend in hair super easy. Because the teeth are so close together, it makes it easy for me to blend extension hair and real hair together, or for really precise styling. This is why this is the go-to comb if you are doing something like a silk press where you want to separate each individual strand as much as you can. This is a comb for precision. This is why it is, but even though it's a comb for precision, this is the worst comb that you can use to detangle, right? So it is not that this comb is damaging, it's that if you use it the wrong way for the wrong purpose, right, with the wrong methods, it can damage the hair. So it is not a comb and a brush. It is not this comb that will induce mechanical damage on the hair shaft, but the user who is using the comb wrong that will cause mechanical damage. I hope that makes sense. Making sure that you're using the right tools for the right purposes when you are doing your hair, or anybody else's hair for that matter, is going to be the determining factor between if whether or not a comb or a brush or any tool that you're using within the hair is going to be damaging long term. All right, number two is going to be brushing wet hair. Now this is one that a lot of people don't want to hear, because a lot of people don't want to accept it, because it makes it so you're not able to do your favorite thing, which is detangling your hair wet. The hair is a fiber that is weakest when it is wet and strongest when it is dry. So if you are detangling your hair wet, that is the reason why you are noticing clobs of your hair in the brush every time you get done doing your hair. If you get done combing your hair and you didn't just take braids out or anything like that, and it's just a regular wash day, and at the end of your wash day you have globs of hair in your hand, you, my love, are in the midst of mechanical damage within your hair, because your hair is weakest when it is wet. It is never supposed to be detangled while it is wet, because when the hair shaft is wet, the bond, the hydrogen bond, is broken and paralyzed. There are 3 bonds that hold your hair together: the disulfide bond, the salt bond, and the hydrogen bond. And when the hair is wet, the temporary bond, which is the hydrogen bond, is broken temporarily with water, right, until you reset it, and your hair is limp and in limbo, like it can do absolutely nothing because you paralyzed it with water. So it gives you the illusion that it's easier for you to detangle your hair wet with conditioner than it is for you to do it dry with oil, because it glides through. Well, love, the only reason that it is gliding through is because it is paralyzed and unable to defend itself. That's why you're getting globs of hair in your combs and brushes every time you detangle your hair, my love. That is not normal. So detangling your hair wet and combing your hair wet repeatedly, wetting your hair multiple times throughout the day, is one of the leading causes of mechanical damage, because by you wetting your hair multiple times through the day, multiple times through the week, to like refresh curls, even if it's with a water-based product, even if it's not water, if it's just a water-based product, what you are doing is causing the hair's follicle to swell and unswell over and over again, which in return causes hydro fatigue within the hair's follicle, which in return weakens the hair shaft. And as the hair shaft is weakened, whenever you comb it, whenever you brush it, mechanical damage is invoked. All right, so I really hope that makes sense. Let's keep going. Number 3 is going to be tight hairstyles. Whenever you do tight hairstyles, tight ponytails, whenever you have a hair wrap on that's really tight, whenever you have a weave that's too tight, tight braids under your weave, tight hairstyles, and all of that stuff, that leads to excessive mechanical damage. This leads to stress on the hair shaft, and blockage to the hair shaft's cuticle with heavy oils and butters and products, which in return will make the hair shaft weaker by it being so much pulling and tugging on it. And then on top of that, your hair is not able to receive the moisture that it needs from the environment, because it has so many products on it to give you moisture, that you are not able to receive moisture from the environment because of your moisturizing products, and that makes the hair shaft weaker and more susceptible to breakage, which in return increases the amount of mechanical damage that you have. Moving along to number 2, which is chemical damage. Now, chemical damage is pretty self-explanatory. There are 3 bonds that hold the hair together again, and the disulfide bond is the bond that we break whenever we are either changing the color of your hair or changing the texture. So if you are a person who has naturally straight hair and you are going curly, you're getting a perm, and I am reformatting the bonds that are in your hair, and I'm actually adding more softer to softer linkages within your hair shaft to make your hair go from straight to curly. And then if you have curly hair and you want to go straight, I am removing a couple of those bonds, a couple of the softer to softer linkages. Instead of putting them in like I am to give you a perm, I am slowly removing just a few of them, and I'm only getting your hair about 72% relaxed in a healthy way, right? And so that way you still have enough bonds, enough sulfur to sulfur linkages to keep your hair strong, but it's still a little bit more manageable for you, right? So where we have chemical damage, and then the same thing goes for hair color. When you are coloring hair, what I am doing is removing melanin out of the cortex of the hair shaft, and the more melanin I removed from the cortex of the hair shaft, the lighter your hair is. But dependent on the person's hair shaft, there is a way that I remove that melanin, right? If I remove too much melanin too fast, I end up breaking down the hair shaft permanently, right? Or if and if I don't do it in steps, if I don't do it properly, if my systems are off, if the client didn't have a proper color consultation first, I could really cause a negative reaction. Same thing with a relaxer. If I for example do a relaxer on somebody who already has their hair lightened with with bleach, with hair lightener, right? If somebody is already like a level, the color scale goes from a 1 being black and 10 being like platinum blonde white, right? So if I take somebody from a level 1 or 2 to a 10 in one setting, and then I turn around and put a relaxer on it, oh my god, I am going to completely break down their bonds in their hair shaft. I'm going to completely strip their hair of all its melanin, and I'm also going to be stripping it of those sulfur to sulfur linkages, because when you are removing hair color, if you go too far, you will end up changing the texture of your hair, because you won't just be removing melanin, you will also be removing some of those sulfur to sulfur linkages. So this is why understanding chemicals and not just mixing things up in your room like YouTubers taught you to is one of the number one causes of damage. There are so many women who are like, oh, I'm not team natural no more, I'm doing relaxers. And a lot of women think that they're supposed to keep the relaxer in their hair until they see no curls, and that is not true. You are only supposed to relax your hair anywhere between 72 and 75%. It is never supposed to be bone straight. Even like with the extensions that I have in now, these are my favorite texture of extensions, because even when I do wear my own hair, even if I did decide to relax it, it would never be 100%. It will always be to the point where my hair still look puffy when it's blown out, right? So that is what's called overprocessing. Whether you do overprocessing with color, with relaxers, with lightener, anything, there is a such thing as too much of something. Just like keratin, doing a keratin treatment. A keratin treatment is literally just a thick coating on top of the hair shaft. And if you have something like low porosity hair, you can really damage the hair's cuticle by using a keratin treatment. And even if you have high porosity hair, if you overuse keratin treatments over time, and even if you don't overuse them, unless you're like a swimmer, somebody who washes their hair so freaking much to the point where you're not piling the keratin on top of each other, then eventually your hair is going to break off with keratin treatments. I have a video linked in the description box about keratin treatments. Literally, I do not recommend keratin treatments to anybody unless you are a swimmer. If you are a person who swims all the time and you just know for no matter what you are not going to be able to stay out the water because in your past life you was a fish, then what you are going to have to do is get a keratin treatment. And the only reason that a keratin treatment is going to work for you, in my opinion, is because chlorine is made of the same thing that lightener is made of. So every time you get into a pool full of chlorine or into salt water, you strip the keratin off the hair shaft. So if you're swimming all the time, instead of the chlorine stripping your natural oils, instead of the chlorine stripping out the melanin that lives in your hair shaft, instead of the chlorine stripping your cuticles down, it would just be slowly taking away the keratin. And this is why keratin treatments are not a big deal for my clients that would be swimmers, like professional swimmers, or just athletes that always needed to swim, or if they were older women that just needed to do swimming for aerobics, and you know you're never gonna stop doing that, then all right, you can get a keratin treatment, because the chlorine literally eats away at the keratin, so you don't have to worry about it being a buildup of it. But if you're like one of those team natural people, listen, the keratin treatment gonna feel good for a minute and then all your hair gonna start falling out. But you know, go watch the video, you don't gotta listen to me. Heat styling. Now, flat irons and heat tools are not the devil. It is the overuse and the improper use of heat tools, heat protectants, and things of that nature that mess people up. For example, most people think that you're supposed to spray your thermal, because people are so afraid of heat, they don't follow directions. And the amount of women that think that thermal heat protectant goes on the hair while the hair is wet is like overboard. Your blow dryer is the leave-in conditioner is your protection for your blowout and the blow dryer, the protection for your blowout and from environmental pollution, which is the form which is our very last form of damage. So when you are using heat tools, you have to make sure that you are using them sparingly. There are a couple of videos that I've seen of people that, you know, and I mean I understand, I guess, where people are coming from, where people say like, oh, heat protectants aren't necessary. That is not true. Heat protectants are polymers. If you don't know what I mean by that, make sure you check these 2 live broadcasts where I gave you guys a detailed breakdown of what polymers are, right? But leave-in conditioners are polymers and heat protectants are polymers, and polymers create a coating on top of the hair shaft to protect it, right? So when you use a heat protectant spray is a polymer that puts a coating on top of the hair shaft that reflects heat, so the hair shaft isn't able to absorb the heat to break apart those bonds to create heat damage in the first place, right? So these are things that you want to be cautious of. If you are heat training and that's what you're going for in the first place, then you still want to make sure that you're using a heat protectant, because you want to control the amount of heat that is being put on the hair shaft. So using a heat protectant is really important, and making sure that you have a regimen that you stick to is really important also. If you say, okay, I'm only putting heat on my hair every 2 weeks, you need to only put heat on your hair every 2 weeks and get a blow dryer and learn how to like round brush your hair and use a blow dryer with heat instead of a flat iron wherever you need to refresh your roots or something. This is something that I really encourage you to do. I know y'all not gonna want to hear this, but the #1 cause of mechanical damage is avoiding trims. Go ahead and watch this video linked in the description box below where I break down to you a trim. And so if you watch this video, you will really understand what a trim is and why you're not able to retain length, and how getting a trim helps you to retain length. No, getting a haircut does not help you grow hair, but yes, getting a haircut, a trim will help you retain the length that you already have. And I know that could be confusing, but when I say I break it down to the centimeter in this video, go watch it, link in the description box below. But by you not getting trims, it is the same thing if you had a run in your stocking. If you have a run in your stocking first thing in the morning, if it's just a little hole at the bottom first thing in the morning, by the time you get home, if you've done everything, girl, it didn't made its way all the way up to your hoo-ha. All right, because that's how the run works. Well, guess what? Your ends are the same exact way. So when you have a split end, whenever people are like, oh, I'm gonna just cut a little off, you literally cut that hair for nothing. When I would have clients sit in my chair and they'll be like, oh, just cut this much, I would tell them, honestly, sis, I don't really want you to waste your money, because you're gonna be paying me to open and close my shears for absolutely nothing. I'm gonna cut this off and it's gonna keep splitting up the hair shaft. So what is the point of me cutting it and taking your money? Like, it doesn't make sense. So it's the same thing for you. Even if you get a trim, you cutting off that one end is not going to stop it from splitting. If anything, it's going to make it split even more, because you cut it off. You cut the split that was already happening, you cut that off, so now it has to go up even more and make room. So this is why getting a trim is really important, right? As long as you're finding somebody that's not scissor happy, that knows what they're doing, somebody that you can trust, then you're good, right? Let's keep it going. Now, a lot of chemical damage, like I said, it can happen when your color formulation is off, if you use a developer that is not fit for your porosity. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, porosity doesn't matter. That is not true. Porosity is how you decide what developer you use in the hair salon. If you have low porosity hair, that means that it's hard for your cuticle to open. So I'm not really going to use a 10 or a 20 volume on you. I may use 30 to 40 depending on how low of a porosity you have. If you are somebody who has high porosity hair, your cuticle cuticle is wide open, I don't need to use super relaxer on you. I'm gonna give you chemical damage. I will give you chemical damage if I use high relaxer on somebody with high porosity hair. So because people think for so long that the curl, that the relaxer strength that they use is based on the way that their curls look. No, you pick your developer based on your porosity, based on the way the cuticle opens and closes. If the cuticle is already open, why would I need a 40 volume developer to force it open? That doesn't make sense. If you have high porosity hair like myself, I never go over 20 volume. I don't need anything over 20 volume. My hair colors very well, and it also loses color very well, so I have to color it a little more often, which is another reason why I'm not using 40 volume on my hair. I really hope that that makes sense. About henna, a lot of people are like, oh, I won't have chemical damage because I'm gonna use henna. Listen, henna is permanent hair color. Henna is not temporary hair color. Henna lets off a temporary hue on top of the hair shaft that rinses off, but the pigment lives inside of the hair's cortex forever. Henna has to be cut out or extracted out with a very, very expensive product and a very, very strenuous process. And a lot of cosmetologists are like, I don't care how much money you pay me, I will never ever do henna.
I will never ever do it. I don't care how much money you give me.
And a lot of hairstylists feel like that. So henna is not something that is temporary. Henna is very permanent. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but I have so many clients that are older women who've been using henna for a very long time, and now they're experiencing out of nowhere, right, like a whole lot of breakage, thinning, and balding. And then a lot of them will go back and discover that they have low porosity hair, and henna creates molecular bricks on top of the hair shaft and inside of the hair's cortex. And based on what you know about low porosity hair has a tight cuticle, so the fact that henna puts molecular bricks on top of the hair shaft, it just makes the hair heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier till it snaps and breaks. If you want to know more about it, I break it down in detail in the video link below, so go watch it. Don't take my word for it. Go watch that video, and it has the scientific evidence in it for you to do your research yourself. Environmental damage is one of the ones that is so overlooked, and environmental damage is induced by the craze that everybody has to add all of these products on and eliminate all of the ones that we truly need, right? One that I see all the time is like, oh, a leave-in conditioner is not needed. The leave-in conditioner, in my professional opinion, with over a decade within this industry, a leave-in conditioner, in my opinion, is the most important product that you have for environmental damage in general. And this is why. External factors like pollution, sun exposure, wind, humidity, and so many other things can contribute to environmental damage within the hair shaft. Ultraviolet UV radiation can be extremely detrimental to the hair shaft in general. And this is why leave-in conditioners are so important, because a leave-in conditioner conditions your hair to be ready for the environment, not just for your flat irons and your blow dryers, but for the environment. Leave-in conditioner gets your hair shaft ready to safely open and close as needed to receive moisture from the environment. I don't care what anybody tells you on social media, oils and butters are not moisture. Your body gets moisture from the things that you ingest into it, and from the way that your hair's cuticle opens and closes to receive moisture from the environment. This is why knowing your porosity is so important. If your hair absorbs moisture from the environment, the only way that your hair can absorb anything is based on the rate within based on the rate which your hair shaft can open and close, and this is dependent on your porosity. So if you have low porosity hair, the products that you use to help you with the environment and to avoid environmental damage, the way that you do this is to pick products that coincide with your hair's porosity. So this is why if you're a person with low porosity hair, you get low porosity products. If you're a person with medium to normal porosity hair, you get those type of products. And if you're a person with high porosity hair, you get products for high porosity hair to avoid environmental damage. You need to have products that fit your hair's porosity, because you are the co-creator of your hair. You are the person who keeps up with the creation, but you are not the creator. So you can't pick and choose when people are like, oh, everybody's different. Not really. Like, not really. Everybody bleeds red. Everybody has a respiratory system, a heart, lungs. Everybody has a sebaceous gland that produces sebum. Everybody has sweat glands within the scalp and different layers of skin. Like, everything's the same. All right, but there are certain properties that are different, and it is only when you learn the human body for real and make decisions and product selections based on the things that you've learned about the human body, that's the only time that you can really get real results, real lasting results. These are some of the properties of environmental damage. Number one is going to be the fading of your natural hair color and your natural pigment. A lot of the different pollutions within the air, like UV radiation and sun pollutes, like too much direct sunlight will eventually change the color of your hair and will end up messing with the amount of melanin that you do have within the hair shaft. It will also mess with the hairs. It also will mess with the layers of the hair strand, and in return it will make the hair appear a little bit more transparent, which will kind of look as if your hair is becoming a little thinner, where in reality you are really just experiencing environmental damage. Number two, so remember, when we are talking about leave-in conditioners, heat protectants and serums, these are all products that we use in the hair salon to protect our clients against environmental damage. And by you taking these products out and replacing them with butters and oils and things of that nature, what you really do is cause more problems than ever. For example, like, most people think that they're helping their scalp by greasing it, and they're like, oh, well, my grandma used to do it. Well, I need us to not be so in denial about things, and let's really be realistic. If your grandma taught you, right, your grandma learned from her grandmother, and her grandmother learned from her grandmother, and her grandmother learned from her grandmother, and by the time we get there, they were in slavery and we were in the fields. And when we were in the fields, we were standing in the sun for hours, and our skin had sun exposure. Our scalps were in, like, directly under the sun for hours. So they would cover their hair in butters and oils to protect themselves from environmental damage. All right, but I also want you to remember that these things were passed on down generation to generation, right? So by the time it gets to, like, my grandmother's generation, they're still greasing the scalp, but as they're greasing the scalp, the shampoos that they were using back then and the shampoos that we use now are completely different, right? When our grandmothers were greasing our scalps and using thick petroleums and butters on our scalp, they were also using shampoos like VO5. When somebody asks me about VO5 now, I'm like, I don't use that, that's rough. But the reason that our grandmothers were using VO5 is because VO5, like those different shampoos, those are great at removing buildup and oil clogging and all of that stuff. So yeah, our grandmothers were greasing our scalps. They were also using really harsh shampoos to remove all of that product buildup. But now we're copying some of the things that they've done, but we didn't do the research on why they were doing the things that they did. Yeah, they were using all of that oil, but they were not using using nothing anywhere near a co-wash. So that's why I really want y'all to think about it, because now the majority of my clients are like in their late 60s and they have massive scalp issues, and this is with them using extremely strong shampoos and conditioners later on in life. So I cannot even imagine what the women now in this generation who are doing the same thing that they were doing back then, but not using the thick and heavy shampoos and really strong shampoos to remove all of the oil buildup, because you're only using co-wash and conditioner. These are things that I really want you all to take into consideration. These 3 forms of damage can really all be fixed, right? They can really all be fixed, and you can really maneuver around all of them if you make sure that you really study each area before you do anything. So when it comes to mechanical damage, we talked about that. Really understand different combs and brushes, understand how to properly use blow dryers and tools before you do. It's same thing with chemicals. Get a mannequin that has human hair and practice blow drying on that mannequin. Practice trimming and cutting on that mannequin. Practice braiding. All of the different things that you want to try to do in your hair, do it on the mannequin down to the color. All of these things. And then once you feel like your mannequin look like a human that can go out and your mannequin should be paying you, then you can go ahead and do it on your own hair. But to be honest with you guys, for over a decade, right, so well over 12 years since the whole Team Natural community thing started, most women do their hair the way that we professionally did weaves. Like, think about it, the bagging method, that's what we would do. Like, I would do that sometimes if I had a client and I was coloring her hair and she left her hair with me overnight to color. After I double processed it a couple of times, I would leave the hair in a bag full of like conditioner, and then I would leave. See, doing that is different than doing, like, it was okay doing it on the wig. You know why? The wig is no longer attached to a follicle, so it's not gonna get hydro fatigue because there is no follicle swelling and unswelling. But see, because black women have been listening to YouTubers so much, you guys now treat your real hair the same way that professional cosmetologists treat weaves, right? So these are things I want y'all to think about it, even down to the way y'all drench y'all hair in conditioner and comb through it. That is the way that if I have an old wig that I want to use again, we would go and get some of that silicone based conditioner. I swear to God, we would get the silicone based conditioner and saturate an old wig in it and put it in a plastic processing cap, put towels underneath, like all throughout the dryer, and then put the plastic bag in the dryer and cover it and let it sit there. And then we would take it out and like comb through the wig, you know what I mean, with all of the conditioner in it, and then it was good. That's how we treat wigs, y'all. But y'all have to stop treating y'all real hair the same way that professional cosmetologists treated their wigs. Just like now, okay, don't get mad at me, but the same way that in the professional hair salon we cut baby hairs on the wig, y'all are cutting y'all real hair like that. It's like in real life, like you'll look on social media and you see black women like taking their edges and pulling them out and cutting them. Swear to God, like these are like this, like they just came out like this. I'm gonna show y'all when I wake up in the morning. They don't look like this. It just be one little ball right there. It do, and it's about to start shriveling up again. But there are women who, if their hair doesn't do this naturally, they literally go in and like cut their hair shorter. But that's what we used to, that's what we do to lace frontals. We do that to lace frontals to hide the lace, y'all. But black women are literally turning themselves into the wigs. Instead of you wearing the wig, women are becoming the wig. So these are things that I really want everybody to take into consideration, right? Really start practicing what you do. But you can limit the amount of mechanical damage, chemical damage, and environmental damage. If you've learned anything in this video, make sure you leave a comment below and let me know exactly what you learned. Also, make sure that you head over to my blog post so you can learn a little bit more about what to do, what tools to use, and what products to use, all that stuff. All right, I love you so much. Until my next video, bye y'all.